Katie, thank you so much for joining me. We were out the other night, was having dinner with you and Dusty, and it just kind of came over while we were talking. I don't even know what we were talking about at that moment, but I'm like, I got to get you in here to talk to me. And let me tell you, I want you to know why I wanted you to come in. When we started this podcast, we had the idea that we wanted to talk about the entrepreneurs, the leaders, the people who make this area great. And when I think Katie Daigle, I think leader. There is just something about you when you're around a group of people, at least a group that you feel comfortable with. I just can't put it into words. I mean, just your leadership style and quality just comes out, and it's a natural thing. It's not something like you're coming there barking orders. It's like, hey guys, let's just have a conversation about this, and it's just organic and it flows. And
Thank you.
you and Dusty just together as a team of being in Carla in my life has just very much impacted us. And I just want people to see kind of what I see in you today. And I would like to talk about the ULM nursing program because you're a professor there. So let's get started then. So
Okay.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So I think that we're in Northeast Louisiana. Like I mentioned, I want to highlight the great things that we have to offer within our community. And one of the things I think people just overlook a lot is our education system, especially when it comes to the medical field. We're so blessed to have VCOM in here for a medical school, but we have 4 universities that offer medical training. So all 4 of our universities, so we've got ULM, Tech, Delta, and then Grambling, all offer some type of nursing program. And then we also have at ULM, we have a, from last I heard, it was a very renowned pharmacy school as well.
Yes.
So talk to me about why you got into the medical field. I know you and your husband both are in it, but you specifically, what attracted you to the medical field?
Well, when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to be. As a young person, I would always just say I want to help people, but I had no idea what that would look like. And so I went to college at McNeese in Lake Charles, and my first year kind of just taking the basics and still didn't know. And a college professor that I had at McNeese, I went to meet with her about some math problems, and she actually is a part of my story in life because it was just a brief meeting, probably meant nothing to her, but she suggested going to take a career test at the counseling center on campus. And so I thought, why not? I'm lost, so I can try that at least. And so I go take the career test at the counseling center. It was the top 3 things, and nursing wasn't number 1. I think number 1 was special education teacher. Nursing might have been number 2, and number 3, like social work. And so it was interesting because my mom had always kind of suggested that I could be a nurse. And it's kind of laughable, but as a young person, I said I can't be a nurse because I would get tears in my eyes when I would get my immunizations before they ever even stuck me. It was
You just knew it was coming.
the anxiety more than the pain. So I would say I can't be a nurse if I can't even get a shot. So anyway, something about that career test made me think, well, I think I'll try it. I mean, science interests me, helping people interests me. Nursing definitely seemed like a great path for helping people. So I just went ahead and dove right in and changed my major at McNeese to be nursing. And as I was going through the steps to get into the program, seemed like the right path. And then once I was in the program, I never looked back. It was absolutely a
Felt like it was a good fit.
wonderful fit for trying to help people. Yes. And I did learn that I can give a shot. It doesn't matter if I can take one.
So you don't cry every time you give a shot.
So I don't cry when I give one.
Okay. So what took you from wanting to be a nurse and you advanced it to become a nurse practitioner? How did that decision process, went into that decision process?
So it's kind of interesting. Probably my senior year and right when I was graduating nursing school, I can't really explain it. Something just said, I think I would like to be a nursing teacher. Like that seems like something I would really like. but I was really young and wasn't sure, so I dove into nursing practice, and my main place that I worked is ICU. And so I started working on my master's degree just at a very slow pace and just seeing what it was about, taking a few classes here and there while I was working full time. So then my husband, who's a nurse, he went to graduate school for anesthesia. So while he was in school, they're not allowed to work. So I just focused on working and sat out of school while he finished his. So then when he was done, it's my turn to think about it again. And nurse practitioner seemed interesting. But to tell you the truth, my heart always wanted to be a nursing teacher. So the story is kind of odd, and I always tell my students, I said, if I wasn't telling you myself, you might not believe it, but I'm just going to tell you the true story. So when I re-entered the program, I was halfway finished with my master's degree. I always wanted to be what you call a clinical nurse specialist. That's what all of my nursing teachers were.
So what does that mean?
It is a degree, a master's degree, and it just means that you have a special level of knowledge, a higher level of education. A lot of those people do work as a nurse educator at a college, but you could work in a hospital as maybe educating the staff or educating patients or designing programs, So at that time, there's not a degree in clinical nurse specialist anymore, but at that time, there still was a degree. And I thought, that's what I want to be, because I think I want to be a teacher, and that's what all my teachers were. But I was young, and I thought, well, if I ever live in a big city or something like that, want to work at a big hospital, I can have options.
Right.
Which is very laughable to me now, because West Monroe is plenty big for me. I don't want to live anywhere in a bigger city. But so you had to find your own preceptor, somebody that you could train alongside to get your hours for your program. So I tried, couldn't find a preceptor. So I was very blessed that at that time, the head of the graduate program for nursing at McNeese had been my teacher in my undergrad, but not just my teacher, my clinical teacher. So we knew each other pretty well. So I called her and said, I cannot find a clinical nurse specialist preceptor. I just want to be a teacher. That's what I want to be. So just put me in the nurse educator track. So there was one for that. And she says, oh, Katie, I'm sorry. We just changed the curriculum. And if you want to be educator, you have to start all over. And I said, oh, heck no. What's the fastest way for me to get out of here with a master's degree in nursing? And she said, nurse practitioner. And I said, sign me up. So I could stay at my halfway mark and finish that last half as a nurse practitioner. So, I thought, well, maybe this will be good. Maybe I will like it. And it's something that I'm afraid to do. And now I'm being forced to do it. And so I did it. And actually had one friend up here in the she was actually from Delhi, and I was living up here, but we were both going to McNeese for our nurse practitioner. So you do all your coursework online, but we were doing our clinical hours up here in person. So it was nice to have a friend, So we're about to graduate, and I asked her one day, do you ever leave clinical and think, I don't know if I want to do this? And she was like, no, I can't wait. I love it. And I got off the phone and I told Dusty, I leave clinical every day and think I don't want to do this. And I say that to my students too, but I say, do not misinterpret that as a knock against nurse practitioners, because my friend was a wonderful nurse practitioner student and a wonderful nurse practitioner made to do that. The whole point of that is I truly believe people have different skill sets, different talents, different things that you enjoy, just made to do different things. And that was just evidence, I'm just not made to be a nurse practitioner. That's just, and Dusty was, a little sad because he's like, but you'd be so good at it. But I'm like, I don't enjoy it. That's not. So I get my nurse practitioner degree, and you can be a teacher with a master's in nursing. So I was actually a stay-at-home mom for a while. And then when I was ready to get into the workforce again and to look at education, I called the director of nursing at ULM, which was Wendy Bells, and said, would you be willing to meet with me about, what the opportunities are and what you might want me to do? I thought it was a meeting about
a long-term plan.
Just, what are the opportunities? What do you want me to do?
Kind of a discovery
She
meeting.
would describe it now as an interview. And I'm like, I didn't think it was, there wasn't even a job I was applying for. I just was wanting to have a conversation.
Sure.
But before I left the room, then I had a job, and
She recognized talents, what she did.
well, it was a great meeting, and she gave me a part-time job, which was perfect for the time, and a good way to get my feet wet.
How long ago was this?
So 2017.
Okay.
So again, you go all the way back to me being a senior in college, and I think I want to be a nurse educator,
Right.
but I've never been one. And so how do you really know if that is something you feel good at and that is fulfilling and that you enjoy? But so I loved it from day one.
So
Like, loved it.
starting out part-time, what did that look like for you? You know, what year were you actually involved
Mm-hmm.
in, and how did that transition from part-time into your full-time? I mean, you
Yes.
got a full load now.
So it was fall of 2017. So part-time for nursing faculty usually means that you don't teach them in the classroom, that you bring them to the clinical setting, the hospital, and teach
Okay.
them how to be a nurse. And nursing is unique when we talk about medical professional jobs and health sciences, like most of the degrees that we have at ULM, in that when we go to when I take a group of students to the hospital, we work very closely with the nurses on the floor. You have to work together. They're a vital part, but I am like it's my responsibility to teach them how to be a nurse. So we're taking care of patients together. That's how they learn. We take care of patients, and I'm the leader of that. So that's what part-time work is taking them to the clinical setting and being in charge of that group of students,
So
training.
So I'm assuming you guys have a standard location you go to, so you're seeing a lot of the same patients, but there's an actual nurse that's there that's responsible for
Correct.
this
That
patient.
works for the facility.
Correct.
Yes.
So is that nurse in the room while you're giving instruction?
No. They
Okay.
can be. And we want to keep them informed of everything that we're doing with the patient, because at the end of the day, that is their patient. So we definitely keep them well informed, collaborate with them. If they want to be present, they could be, but no.
You ever had like disagreements on with kind
No,
of
actually,
paths that you wanted?
I have to say,
Because
I've
I
had
would think
really
in
good
medicine
experience.
that everything's not an exact science.
That
and
is true,
That
yes.
there's valid opinions that could differ. So you've
that
been
does
pretty,
happen. I can't really think of an example right now, and if I did, I might not want to share it. But so yes, I could say I can't think of a time that I had any kind of like heated conflict with a staff.
But y'all are working
person.
closely with the same staff pretty much all the time.
So I have a super good relationship with the staff. There are times that I do disagree with their plan of action. We will, if it is not unsafe for the patient, we will always take the nurse's plan of action because it is their patient.
Well, I
They
do
are
think that
employed
that's
there.
helpful, though, for the students to be able to see that there's not one way.
Yes.
It's not that this is right or this is wrong. It's this is how I would have handled the
Right.
treatment, but I want you to understand that they're handling it differently, and that is an acceptable way as well. But
Right.
this is the course, and this is what we're going to
And that's called debriefing, and that's like a really good learning tool in nursing. So, once the day's over, we can sit as a group and talk about that of this is what the nurse wanted to do, this is what I would have done, it's still not, so you should do what I do. Let's talk about what do you
Right.
think? And what do you think's good about one way and good about another way?
So in that environment, it's got to be kind of collaborative with you and the students. Students are going to have to give you some type of feedback.
Oh yeah.
You and I both know from a teaching standpoint, we're in Sunday school class together, and it's hard to get people to engage and talk sometimes. How are students different? Or do you find they're still kind of the same, that as like general people where they don't want to speak up and sound
Yes.
like they don't know what they're talking about, or have their peers judge them in a harsh way?
You hit it on the head. So students are just normal people. Like, I was thinking about that, about what I love about nursing students, or what my goal is with nursing students, or what I see. Because I like to study people and try to interpret and understand people. And the truth is they're just like all of us. But yes, they don't want to look stupid, sound stupid. They don't want to be embarrassed. And I'm the same way. So in a small group, it's a little easier. So at the
Right.
hospital setting, I'm not going to have more than 10 students. So that's a little bit easier. We get super close. And so I'd say the level of comfort there is better
So is that the average class size, is about 10 students?
at
or
the
do y'all-
hospital.
Okay.
And so then at the school, so we have several teachers that take groups to the hospital, but then when we come to school and take a class, you're all in the same class together.
Okay.
So I would say, 50 might be an average size class
But
so
then
the
those
classroom's
students
harder
are divided up
to
with
go
other
to the
teachers.
hospital with other
Okay.
teachers.
So how does that work when you're given the classroom instruction and then there's a different teacher taking them out to show them things? Do they rotate the teachers, or they pretty much stay with the same group?
They stay with the same teacher for that semester. I would say, there's 5 semesters of nursing school at ULM, and I've been teaching semester 3 for 5 years now. Our team in semester 3, I would say, just a really cohesive team. We don't know each other's content so we all take turns teaching in the classroom too. We don't necessarily know each other's content and expertise as well as the other, but we kind of have an idea of what each other are teaching. We definitely have an idea of what we're testing on, what the goal is to get them ready to take a licensure exam. So then when we take them to the hospital setting, you're just building on those very basics that don't really change between teachers.
So at what year do the students actually get hands-on outside of the classroom?
They start in semester 1 being able to deal with real patients.
Okay.
They do a lot of work in the lab on campus that first semester. But at the end of the semester, that very first semester of nursing school, they'll get to take care of real patients.
So just so I can have a kind of an understanding, we've always, or just me personally, I've always heard, when it's referred to nursing, you've got a LPN and you've got an RN, nurse practitioner, nurse anesthetist. There may be some others, but just on those, the LPN versus the RN, and then I learned today, just kind of doing a little research, there's a BSN, which is an RN, but requires a little more school. So help me understand what those 3 are.
Yeah. So a LPN is a licensed practical nurse, and you would get that you can get that at Delta Community College. You can get it at a VOTEC school. That's a great path for people graduating high school that are ready to get a job, and you can get a job easily. So it doesn't take as much time. You're looking probably more like 18 months.
What are they responsible for?
So in the hospital, they take care of patients just like an RN. They can give medicine. There are certain routes of medicine that they can't give, certain critical medicines that they can't give. And then they practice independently, but there does have to be a registered nurse that would assess the patient once a shift as well. So somebody coming... An RN is more trained and skilled in what we call assessment, checking the patient out, seeing is there any changes, are there any problems.
So if just so I understand, so LPN is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, doing a lot of the blood pressure, taking blood and probably checking in way more on a patient than what the RN is.
Well, they can. And so an RN can do that exact same thing too. And in fact, most of the time does. So in a town like ours at the hospital, most of the time, let's say, you got 30 patients and 4 or 5 nurses, there's going to be a mix of LPN and RNs. Okay. And whoever their patients are assigned to them, they're going to be taking care of that patient in the same fashion. There would only just be maybe some drugs that the RN would have to pop in the LPN's room to give. Okay. And an RN needs to be assessing the LPN's patient once a shift. But you don't have to keep doing all those check-ins. Sure. The LPN can do the check-ins. So
then when you advance it and go from the RN to another RN, which is what the BSN, what's that difference? Because, looking at it from education, it's I think Delta, maybe ULM, offer a 2-year RN class, which I thought it was always a 4-year class.
Yes.
So what's the difference?
It is kind of confusing. So there is so to be a registered nurse, there's an associate's degree, which is the ADN, and there's a bachelor's degree, which is the BSM. Okay. And when you complete those degrees, you literally are going to take the same licensure exam. We call that the NCLEX. But you have to pass that licensure exam to be a registered nurse. So not only do you finish school, but then you got to pass the licensure, which has nothing to do with your school, has to do with the state. So those nurses are 100% equal in their practice of taking care of patients. Okay. It's strictly an education difference. So yes, you would get an associate's degree at Delta. Sometimes 4-year schools have an associate's degree. I know, like when I was at McNeese, we had a associate's degree in nursing and we had a bachelor's degree in nursing. So you would choose which one you wanted. As of right now, Tech's nursing program is associate's degree. So the difference falls in education, and that is the bachelor's nurse just gets more research and leadership education and training. So they say that what that translates into in the workforce would be ideally bachelor's prepared nurses would be more equipped for leadership roles.
Like maybe enter into supervisory role.
Right. And then today's culture, I would say the biggest factor for associates versus bachelors is lots of people want to enter advanced practice, and advanced practice would be nurse practitioner, nurse anesthetist, clinical nurse leader, these things. You have to have a bachelor's to be able to work on that degree.
Gotcha.
So I would say what affects people the most, and in our culture now, is that you want the bachelor's if you want to
additional
pursue more education, pursue a different, career. Whereas if you want to work as a registered nurse, an associate's degree is a great path and quicker, So it just depends on what your timeline is.
Patient care,
same.
Exactly the same.
Mm-hmm, exactly the same.
Awesome. So at ULM, y'all just have the bachelor's program?
And we do have an LPN to bachelor. So we have several students who come to us as a LPN. They've gotten that from wherever. And they can skip a few courses that they've had in nursing school.
But it's not going to cut it in half for them.
No. It'll reduce it by a semester or so. And then we have a new agreement, which I would not be the person to say all the details correctly, but a new agreement with community colleges, specifically Delta, that if you knew at some point you wanted to come to pursue a 4-year degree or your master's later and you wanted to go to Delta first, for whatever reason, time, money, we have an agreement with them that if you know that ahead of time, you take a certain track at Delta, and it just is more of a fast track when you get to ULM.
Yeah, I did read that.
You don't have to do prereq, like your prereqs and all that are
covered.
Done, yes. So it's financially beneficial because it cuts some classes off.
Sure.
And time beneficial. So I would advise anybody who thinks they're interested in starting out at Delta to inquire more about, so if I change my mind in the future and want to let me do the things I need to do to be prepared to go to.
Yeah, maximize your time and your credits and all that good stuff. So what do you think, and I know you probably don't have all the answers of how y'all's program relates to other, not only programs that are in our general area, but across the state. What's a couple of things you think makes ULM's program great?
If you're going to talk about whether a workplace is great, a student environment's great, a program, to me, it's always going to be people, So I think we have a great faculty team. I think ULM, huge credits to them is very accessible. Now, I want to say the word affordable, and I would preface that with I have one that's 16 that'll be going to college soon, and the truth is college is very expensive, way more expensive than when I was there. But so, yes, it's expensive, but if you want to look at
the big picture,
yes,
it's affordable.
ULM is affordable.
Yeah.
And I would encourage people as well, anybody who might think, college is off the table for me because I can't afford it, to talk to people. Like, don't just accept, what you think, to stop your dreams. Like, have conversations with people, talk to people in financial aid. I see all the time, like at my son's high school, they'll have classes on how to fill out a FAFSA form. I mean, that's one basic step that you have to do to be able to get any federal aid, whether that be TOPS. And we are so blessed to live in Louisiana where you do have TOPS. Now, that doesn't cover everything.
Sure.
But man, it
helps.
It's a help. So you can't get TOPS if you don't fill out FAFSA. You can't get grants if you don't. So there are basic steps to take, but it all take help where there's help. Where there's these classes to fill that out, do that. If you're not sure am I eligible for a grant, talk to somebody in financial aid. Don't just accept this is not for me. Like, it is so accessible.
Yeah,
It
and
really
that's
is.
something else I would encourage parents and future students that may want to go to college, and that is start early
Hmm.
with that stuff. You know, gone to probably like you have a lot of graduations when they start reading off scholarships the kids got. Like somebody's like, well, $500 is not much for a scholarship they got, but when they start reading off and they got like 20
Right.
$500 scholarships, I mean that stuff
Yes.
adds up pretty quick.
Right.
So I think that there's opportunity for people. You know, I do agree with you that advanced education is expensive, but I do think if somebody applies themselves, they can make it a
Hmm.
whole lot less expensive without running up a whole lot of student debt. You know, in
Yes.
real estate, that's one of the biggest things that we see is an inhibitor of people to get a home loan. Is just they're overburdened with student loan debt, and in some cases, you look at it and you don't want to be a discouragement to them, but they didn't finish school to get their degree, and they've got so much debt, and I just don't see a way for them
Hmm.
effectively to get a leg up
Hmm.
unless they have a windfall. So be careful.
Yeah.
I mean, kids need to be careful with that.
And that is one thing I would love to say about nursing and about ULM specifically. Now, let me preface because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. ULM has lots of good degrees. Uh, I don't know about the other degrees as well. What I want to say in favor of nursing, and we call it health sciences, so that might be, a medical laboratory scientist, an occupational therapist, a physical
Sure.
therapist, a speech therapist. There are so many. ULM is a jackpot of health science degrees. I mean, you're not going to go to, you go to McNeese where I went, and it has an awesome nursing program, but they do not have the health science degrees that we have. There's so many careers to choose from. So, what I would say about nursing and about health science is my favorite thing about it is you're very employable. And we talk about that. I'm on a committee where we kind of we evaluate things, how many people graduate from our program, how many people are employed, et cetera. And that stuff matters to accrediting bodies, to state, all these people, because they want to know what's your student debt in relation to what your income potential is. Do you have $100,000 in student
So
debt and you can't get a job?
that's really good to know that y'all look at that and study
Yes.
that.
Yes. So it's very interesting. And so when we talked about how I got into nursing too, I would say I grew up in the country. My mom and dad are super intelligent, like abnormally intelligent. My mom didn't finish college because she was too shy. My dad needed to work, so he
Sure.
didn't finish. So he worked at the electrical plant in town. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for a long time and the secretary, but they had 3 children, and they were very intentional about we want you to go to college, and we want you to finish college, and we want you to get a job. And when you graduate college, we're cutting the reins, you're on your own. So it was good encouragement, and at the same time there was the pressure of this is till I get my bachelor's, and then you got to figure out a way to support yourself.
But I think that's healthy.
It was super healthy.
I think we kind of lost a little bit of
Super
that
healthy. And
along the
so
way.
the interesting thing is, my dad's an electrician, my mom's a secretary, and all 3 of their children ended up in the medical field. I'm a nurse. My sister's an occupational therapist. My brother's got a master's in radiology technology. So I think it's interesting. I'm saying that to say I don't know that we were like groomed into like healthcare,
Right.
but I think all 3 of us, in light of how we were raised and in light of wanting to get a job, health sciences seemed the natural good. So that's, again, I'm not knocking any other degrees.
Oh, no. I'm with you.
We need all the degrees at ULM, and there's lots of great jobs you can get. That's just a huge plug for health sciences. I
Sure.
mean, you can get a
Well,
job.
so I think there's no secret. We have a shortage of nurses in the country. And I don't know how that happened. I don't know if it's the baby boomer generation is just that big generation and that more care is required. And we just started off, with a low inventory of healthcare professionals. But you hear so many times that we're in desperate need. We're in desperate need. And a lot of times when and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, when hospitals emergency room is full, but I mean, there's a half empty hospital. It's when they say they don't have beds available, it's not that they don't have beds available. They don't have anybody to take care of those beds,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So they're still on. I don't know if you know any stats on. We don't have to get that detailed, but are we still faced with a healthcare shortage? A shortage of
Oh, yeah.
nurses?
So really, I mean, I graduated 21 years ago, and there was a shortage then. So we've never even come close to getting out of a shortage, but it is definitely worse and predicted to continue to worsen. So some of it does have to do with baby boomers retirement. So some of them are, exiting the work field. We have more patients to take care of. And COVID was a huge slap for nursing. Some people just, if they were on the brink of retirement, then it's just settled. They're going to go ahead and retire. Some people were young and just decided it's just too much. It was just a really hard time.
And I'm sure
that
affects all the other health science jobs that ULM have.
Yes.
Probably have a lot of the same shortages as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that, just a couple of things before we go, I want to know, what has technology done to the nursing field since you got graduated out of college first time?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the workforce working with it. Have you seen the medical technology change a whole lot
Mm-hmm.
to enhance the patient care specifically that the nurses can give the patients?
Right. So when I graduated in 2002, we were just on the brink of doing electronic health charting. We were still charting on paper, but that pretty much came to be right at that time. And one of the benefits of electronic health charting is the accessibility and the transferability, being able to go to another unit and access your records. And we did have automatic medication dispensers then, but those have just, advanced. The ability of a nurse to look up a medicine is a lot easier. We were, and we still do use books now, but we were limited to a book. And now, you got a world of apps and things to help you.
That probably will help
be safe.
Probably prevents mixing of medications that
Yes.
would react badly to one another. So
yes, it's so easy to find that now, where I can type in, does this interact with that, versus then I would be having to read 2 pages of a list.
So you brought up COVID. I read an article that you wrote, a paper that you wrote, describing some of the challenges that you guys had in COVID. And I didn't even think about that before I started writing the articles, that you guys could not go in and lay hands on patients during that time. Mm-hmm. So you've got a degree, you've got an education system that requires classroom study, but nothing can replace you getting inside of that room. And I never thought about that. So tell us a little bit about what how y'all overcame that and how long you had to use that, and then has some of that carried over even after COVID?
So I am super thankful that we basically got dismissed from healthcare facilities. And I would say that's very common to the rest, definitely to the state of Louisiana, but even to the nation, I'd say it's pretty comparable of how it happened. But so it would be, the middle of the spring of 2020, we were no longer allowed to go into clinical facilities. Some of that was because we had no idea of the danger we were facing. It was very unknown, but a lot of it had to do with personal protective equipment, PPE. They can't give 10 of my students all this PPE, and students wear more than staff just because they go in the room more. And, so that was a huge issue with us not being able to stay in the facility. So we only missed out on half of spring 20.
Okay.
So that's a huge blessing. By fall 20, we were back in.
Okay. But what did you do during that time to maintain the education with the students?
We were very creative. We worked very, very hard at home. I can remember being so thankful because I had 3 kids at home from school, that the weather was pretty wonderful, more than ever, for that March and April of 20.
The best spring I can remember in my life.
I'm glad you remember it that way too, because my kids, because I was on the computer sun up to sundown, and they were outside playing, so it worked well. But so just super creative of coming up with this. So you think of scenarios. What have I dealt with students in the hospital? That's a good learning opportunity. Maybe something like we talked about before, where you're presented with a patient problem, and there's more than one route you could take. So what do you think's the best route? Why do you think that? So we call those discussion boards, where you kind of put up, the scenario, and the students have to discuss that.
Tell me about the program that y'all had. I think the program was what's that thing? Shadow Health.
Shadow Health. So that is called virtual simulation. And Shadow Health is a brand of that, and there's several brands that we've used. But so Shadow Health, you would get on the computer and you're taking care of a patient, and you're trying to take a history or ask them some questions, and you ask the question, and if you don't word it just right, they won't accept it. Like, are they real difficult with you? So there was some benefit in virtual simulation, definitely. There were other things, virtual simulation. Another one was called Swift River, where you've got to administer meds. So it's a screen full of patient rooms, and the meds pop up, and you've got to be able to recognize, are there interactions in these meds? Is the dose too high? Is it the right time? Am I even giving it to the right patient? So there's really, that virtual simulation is something that we prefer to use as a supplement, like you said, because you can't really substitute that hands-on.
Sure.
But for half a spring 20, definitely, between the case studies and virtual simulation, I feel like we were able to get them what we need. Now, there was also collaboration locally with hospitals, because you had a group that was graduating in May 20 who are finishing their nursing school with no patient contact, So there's just communication and collaboration of, like, you understand, we understand, like, they're finishing their school, this is unprecedented. So ultimately, they need more orientation. They're going to need, when they graduate and take a job, they're going to need some. And the hospitals, like, everybody was very aware.
So did y'all learn anything about enhancements that you guys needed to think moving forward with the curriculum, because we all were caught flat-footed? Did you see any improvements in the education system that y'all learned through COVID?
I would say I would say the biggest lesson was flexibility. Now, I would say, on the other hand, nurses by nature are you have to be flexible. So we were already flexible, but I would say it stretched our flexibility in a good way, where, like, whether it be in parenting or education or whatever, sometimes you're a little in the box, set in the ways, and I'd say COVID flipped all that upside down. So I would say maybe flexibility is not the right word, maybe open-mindedness of, okay, maybe there is another way to do some things. Maybe there are some tools that we haven't been using that we should use, and not as a substitute, but as a supplement.
Sure.
And maybe, things can get done in a way we can't,
How did
think.
So you're a very big relationship.
Yes.
I mean, you're driven off relationships, and we'll get into that a little more in a little bit, but how did that affect you and your teaching quality? Because it is so hard to form a relationship on a screen.
Oh, it was so depressing. So yes, I love relationship. That's my favorite part, is getting to know the students. And so when we were at home, I dealt with the whole class still. We still had some lectures and tests, but then I still also was dealing with my group of 10, And actually in my semester, so it's not like that in everyone, but we have two groups of 10, one at the first half and one at the second half. So the first half got me in person, and we did the regular thing. That second group of 10, not one day did we spend together.
So was that second group when you started, what was it, the email game?
Yes, the email game. So
I thought that when I read that, I'm like, that's totally Katie.
It was so fun. So sometimes people we did meet on Zoom occasionally, but Zoom was difficult because we did also, if our students had a job as a student nurse and their facility would let them work, we did not limit them on saying you have to be on Zoom at 9:00. We wanted them to be free to work and help too. So we wanted scheduling to be very flexible. So we couldn't meet together very much. So email seemed like a good game. So on all these assignments, that they had a lot of assignments that were trying to get this clinical competency, lots of them. and I can give them individual feedback. But I started noticing like a lot of them would be missing the same concepts, you know.
Okay.
So my thought was, I think what I'm gonna try to do is an email game where instead of me telling you what you missed and what the right thing is, I'm going to question why you thought the wrong thing, and then I need you to look up what's the right thing. So it might be, you know, I got 10 students, so I might come up with 10 or 15 questions, and I would say, you can only answer one question at a time, hit reply all. If you get it right, you get a point. And after 24 hours, if there's questions left over, it's a free-for-all, however many you want. And at the end of the thing, you're going to get a Chick-fil-A gift card if you win. So we stuck with it, and it was the best way because I thought, how can I get them to read the email?
Right.
And how can I get them to dive into what they're missing? And so I think it was effective and it was fun. And so I tried to get to know them the best I could through their assignments, through the email game, and whatnot. So normally at the end of the semester, I meet with students and I'll give them like 3 character qualities that I see in them. This was hard.
Can we start off and tell me why?
Why?
When did you start that? Like from the very beginning, when you started teaching, and if so, or when you started, why? Why did you decide on that? Because I think you admit, I don't know if it's you or one of the videos that I watched, to where, you know, at the end of the semester, teachers typically meet with the students, and sometimes they will give gifts or exchange gifts, but you've come up with this plan.
So my first semester when I was part-time, I didn't do anything. My second semester, I was still part-time, and it was when the semester is over, we do a big, long thing of paperwork. It would sort of be like your evaluation at work. It's an evaluation of your clinical performance. So this doesn't have to do with the classroom. This has to do everything with what we've spent these weeks at the bedside doing. And it's very thorough, and so I have to meet with students to go over that at the end of the semester. So my second semester, the night before I had to meet with them, I thought, I think I can do character qualities with them. So what happened was my family had gone to this camp in Tyler, Texas together, maybe a year or two before that. And you do things as a family, but during the day, the children go with their own age group in a small group with a counselor, and they do their activities during the day. At the end of the week, they make it cool. They call it CQ. But so at the end of the week, the counselor meets with that small group and parents can come watch. It's very brief, but the counselor gives the kids in the group 3 character qualities. Well, my boys, they liked it, but I thought it was like super moving and encouraging. Like they'll say, Mama, you can't cry. And I always cry.
Yeah.
It's just, it would be something like, you know, they say one of my kids is grateful. Well, that's not what I see or think or feel, but it's a good, like, oh, like maybe I need to open my eyes more, like, and they're noticing this in my kid.
But you know the thing about someone taking the risk or being bold to tell somebody a character quality, the reason it's so impactful to me to hear you say that is because I know that if somebody's going to take time to tell me about my character quality, they've taken the time to get to know me.
Yes.
And in life, as busy as your life is and my life is, sometimes we forget about how impactful our words are to other people.
Yes.
And just stopping to say thank you or I appreciate you is huge to people. And I think it's like almost getting to be like a lost art of just overall gratitude. It's a lost art of gratitude, having gratitude in what you do and sharing that with people. So you learn it from camp. I would have to assume that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to try it here. Were you nervous about that?
I was nervous, and it's so funny because, and so I would say you hit it on the head. There's 2 driving forces here. When I said that college students are just like everybody else, one thing that I would say that stands out a lot about them to me is I've watched preschoolers and young adults and teenagers and median adults, and everybody wants to be loved and everybody wants to be known, and college students are no different. And so, like, that's my passion, is to love them and to know them, because I happen to think that's an effective teaching strategy too. There's a mutual respect there. They can accept feedback from me and instruction from me. But also what you said, I 100% believe, and the Bible says our tongue has the power of life and death. And I feel like I'm in a position of power over a student where it is not lost on me that when I have to correct a student or, give them constructive criticism, my words have the power to totally send them down and say, I quit, I can't do it. Or my words have the power to send them soaring. Like, anytime I have difficult conversations with students, that is always at the forefront of my mind. Like, it doesn't mean that I don't do the correction.
Right.
It means the power of my words.
You want to do the correction in a way that gives them the best benefit for what you're trying to
Yes.
correct.
Yes. So character qualities is awesome. That first semester, I decided the night before. So literally, I laughed. I had index cards and my kids' Crayola markers, and I wrote the student's name at the top of the index card. Wrote their 3 character qualities, and meet with them the next day. And I didn't know exactly how it would go. I was kind of nervous, but that very first semester, I knew that was definitely going to be something I would always want to do. So I had a student from Vietnam who was an amazing student, and I give it to her, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna keep it forever," And I'm like, "Okay." Well, then she had asked me, at the end, can I take a picture? Well, I'm thinking she just wants, we take pictures together all the time.
Sure.
So just kind of take a picture with you. Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, here we are, and she's got that card right here in our picture. She's so proud. She's, I'm going to keep it forever, and she's got that card in the picture. But that first semester, probably the biggest one, and I've gotten to see her a couple times recently, and it's just so she was a super respectful, just obedient student. Very few words. I could probably count how many words she said. She just don't talk very much. Doesn't speak unless she's spoken to. And I don't remember the 3 character qualities I put for her, but they were something like respectful and obedient and humble. And I gave them to her, and she just kind of sat there. And it's like I could tell she knows that about herself. And it didn't seem encouraging. The point is to be encouraging. So I said, "Let me see your card." I said, "I think you already know you're these things, but I think there's one thing that I need to add on here that I don't know if you know." And it's just all like the Lord just leads all. So I write the word capable on her card and give it back to her. And she just starts crying. And again, this is somebody who never says hardly any words. So she says, "Miss Daigle, you just wrote capable on my card. You just don't even know. Last night I prayed. I don't even know if I can do this. I mean, I'm a straight A student, and I'm barely cutting a C in nursing school. And you have to have a C to pass. You can't go forward without a C. I'm a straight A student. I can barely make a C. I don't even know if I can do this. Like, I don't know." And I told the Lord, I mean, if you want me to do this, I need you to give me a sign. And she's crying, and she said, "And you just wrote capable on my card." And it wasn't just, the story was amazing. But I always say the fact that she shared it with me is a miracle in itself too. She's just not a talk. She could have thought all that and left the room, and I would have never known it. But anyway, so something similar to that usually happens every single semester, and it's enough to know that that's something I always want to do.
But I would also think that you have people that you teach that maybe is not the most super respectful person,
Yes.
or the person that is like really tested your patience through the class. Tell me how those go.
Yeah. Well, it was probably just the next semester. The person that would also be teaching another group at my facility, she would be there earlier than me, and I would follow behind her, and we're good friends. And she started trying to do it with her group, and she had a really challenging student that semester. And I remember thinking, wonder what she's going to come up with this student. And it was wonderful. She was, the thing, we were doing them together. We usually try to just kind of make a cute little thing. And the things that she wrote, I didn't even know the student near as well as her, but I knew all those 3 things were true. So it was a good, and I thought, okay, that is a good lesson for me and good encouragement to me that no matter what, no matter how difficult the student may be, there's always 3 things that are true, that are strengths of theirs. And so it really has never been a problem. Some are just maybe more enjoyable than others. And I would say overall, I'm really I've had a lot of really good nursing students.
Well, I would encourage you to never quit that. as kids, we were told a lie our whole life that sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt
Oh
us.
yeah, that's a lie.
It is a lie.
Yes.
And some of the things that I've been learning a lot lately, and that is gratitude in all that we do, and see the good in others.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going on in people's life
Right.
that has caused this action to happen, but there's good.
Mm-hmm.
There's good that's out there, and we need to do a good enough job looking for it. Katie, I'm honored that you chose to come in here willing, and I didn't have to beg or anything. You mean a lot to you and Dusty both mean a lot to me and Carla. I think we're better people for having you in our lives. And I just want the people to know that I believe that Katie you are a lead in our community. I don't think I know. I've heard from your students that they love your teaching method, that it is a great program that we have at ULM.
It
Not to say
is.
we don't have great programs at other
Mm-hmm.
universities, but we don't have anybody here to talk about this
Yeah.
today. We just have ULM. So thank you for that. And I want you guys to know that I'm going to reach out to ULM. You shared with me a video that really describes the character qualities meeting that you have with that young lady. And if they give me permission to put it out there, I'd like to tag it on the end of
Okay.
this if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
So, Katie, thank you so much for doing this
Thank
with
you
me.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Welcome to the 318 Experience, the ultimate podcast for discovering the best of what our community has to offer. I'm Brian Bendily, your host and local realtor, with a passion for showcasing the people, attractions, and hidden treasures of Monroe, West Monroe, and beyond.